Hey everyone! I'm Albert Boris. So, Super Mario Party Jamboree has been out for a little over a month now, and now that the recency bias is worn off, I think it's safe to say that it's still amazing. It certainly has its issues, no game is perfect after all, but as far as Mario Party games go, it's definitely the largest and most replayable one to date. So you know what that means. Let's predict DLC! Actually, let's not. If there's anything NDCube's track record has told us, DLC is not happening. We didn't get it for Super Mario Party, nor did we for Superstars, and the latter of which was especially a goldmine for it. So why on earth would they break tradition for a game that finally does feel complete? But what we're certainly getting is another Mario Party in 3 or so years. At least if they keep up the release pattern, but even if they don't, we're sure to get another Mario Party sooner or later. And now yes, this is a bit early to make a video like this, seeing as we just had a new installment. And considering how great it was, it's kinda hard to imagine what a worthy follow-up would be like. But I still thought it could be a fun topic to discuss, because there's actually quite a lot of ideas I have for what direction the next game could take. And I also need to pay my bills somehow. So yeah, with all that being said, I say, let's get started. Okay, so first off, let's talk about gameplay. What kind of game will the next Mario Party be? That's probably the most important question. Is it going to be a Super Mario Party 3, or will it be a Mario Party Superstars 2? And by that, I mean if it's going to be mostly new or retro content. They're definitely the two likeliest outcomes in my book, as ever since the Switch era, NDCube definitely seemed to have regained their footing for the series. Super Mario Party, which came out in 2018, was a return to form in almost every way, bringing back the classic gameplay again, but still with its own unique twists. It wasn't received too well, but it was still a step in the right direction for most people. Then we got Mario Party Superstars 3 years later, which further improved on the gameplay, but spiced it up by only having remade content. And I believe this was a wise choice for a few reasons, because A, these old boards and minigames were already beloved to begin with, so it ensures a more positive reception from the start. And B, it would arguably need a smaller budget, because when you don't have to come up with brand new ideas that need time and polish to work, you save yourself much more time. It didn't sell quite as well as Super Mario Party, but I'd argue it gave them breathing room to prepare for their next game, as a few weeks ago we obviously got Super Mario Party Jamboree, and it meant a few things, because for one, it kinda soft confirms that the Super part of the name is kind of its own brand within the Mario Party series now. And by all means, Super Mario Party Jamboree is basically just Super Mario Party 2 in everything but name, as most of the elements here are brought back from that game and improved upon, whether it's the allies or side modes. And while there's still plenty of stuff from Superstars 2, it's clear where the main inspiration lies. And even though we're in the Switch's 8th year, it's already outselling Superstars even at this rate, so on that note, if the next game was Super Mario Party 3, it would probably be more profitable, especially because it's 100% gonna be on the Switch 2 as well, and they'd maybe want the first Mario Party on the system to leave a strong first impression. But I still think it's worth considering that brand new Mario Parties probably need more time to get their polish. Otherwise, it's gonna end up like Super Mario Party. But even if we assume this isn't the case, and it takes equally long for all types of Mario Parties to be made, it's also good to have variety between games. Which is why I think the next Mario Party is gonna be another remake collection, like Mario Party Superstars. Specifically of the GameCube games, mostly. Because sure, at the time, they may have been the worst selling games in the series, but nostalgia is very quickly rising up for those games. And I think NDCube is very much aware of this, seeing as most of the retro games in Jamboree were even from this era. And even then, most people are probably just excited to play a new Mario Party, regardless of. Now, the next thing I'm about to say is gonna be a bit controversial, but also, on a purely subjective note, I'd like it if the next Mario Party game brought back the car formula in some shape or form. It's obviously not gonna happen, but personally, I thought this gameplay was fun in its own right. Because while it was very different from the classic formula, it still had its strengths that made it a memorable experience, mostly in the boss battles. But now is definitely not the time for the car's return. Maybe in 10 years when Mario Party 9 nostalgia becomes dominant. I do think it would definitely work well as a side thing though. Or if it was just part of a story mode, as the linear nature of these boards made them feel more like adventures in the games they were in, and that would obviously fit something like a story mode. But at the same time, that would also take up a lot of development time that could go elsewhere. So yeah, let's not keep dreaming. Now that we got the gameplay out of the way, let's predict some more in-depth things about the next Mario Party. Starting with... the board selection. probably the most important part of any Mario Party. If the boards are not fun, there's not much reason to play the game to begin with. And here's another reason I believe this game is going to be GameCube oriented rather than N64 based. Because most of the best boards from the first 3 games have already been remade now. Regardless of how you stand on these maps personally, there's no denying that these are arguably the most iconic maps from the N64 era, except for Woody Woods I guess. And overall, there's not much left to make another N64 collection of. Not to mention it would be redundant. I mean, who exactly is gonna scream up in joy that they can finally play Mystery Land or Wario's Battle Cannon again?
Me?
Look, I'm not saying nobody likes these boards, I think they're kinda charming in their own rights, but the vast majority don't, so it wouldn't be profitable. And sure, you may say, well, they're gonna have to remake those boards sometime. No, they don't. This isn't Mario Kart. If one retro track sucks, that's fine, there's still at least 15 others. But if a retro board sucks, well, good job, you just wasted a slot on a much smaller quantity. It's not hard to see why ND Cube has prioritized fan favorites. Why wouldn't they? And besides a few oddballs from Mario Party 3, there is not much left to make a really hype collection. Besides, if you really want to play them anyways, there's always the expansion pass. And if the boards are GameCube based, there's also a higher chance that we could see orb items return to a greater extent. Jamboree did also have trap items, but they were pretty surface level, and were usually easy to avoid, so a more developed orb system could definitely spice up the gameplay. However, I still recognize that the GameCube Mario Parties aren't the most famous, which is why I propose that this game would instead have 1 board each from Mario Party 3 up to 8. That would average out to a total of 6 maps, which is not only the general average for the series, but it would also give the selection a greater variety. As I said, Mario Party 3, unlike 1 and 2, still has plenty of unremade maps left that people love, so adding a board from this game would make up for it getting snubbed in Superstars and Jamboree. And Mario Party 8 is like one of the best selling games in the series. Imagine how nostalgic people would feel for its representation. I could certainly attest to it myself. But yeah, 6 boards, and these are the ones I'd predict. First, we have Pirate Dream from Mario Party 5. This would kind of be the obligatory starter map of the game, as it's one of the most straightforward and easy boards to understand. It's a star hunting board. You just go around looking for stars, and there aren't too many gimmicks to worry about. It also seems to be one of the more universally liked boards from the 5th game, so I think it would leave a strong first impression, especially with the adventurous pirate theme it is going for it. Next, the second board would be Chilly Waters from Mario Party 3. Again, another pretty simple star hunting board, but the events are a little more dynamic, as well as more unforgiving than in the previous one, which would give it a 2-star rating instead. But also, we haven't had that many, snow boards in the series to begin with. The only other one is in Mario Party 6, Snowflake Lake, and it's a bit controversial to say the least, due to its star-stealing gimmick, so Chilly Waters would be a safer choice to include. After that, we'd have Goomba's Greedy Gala from Mario Party 4. I suppose this would kind of be the obligatory island hopping board, with more luck elements than the rest. It's not really obligatory, but for the sake of variety, this is probably one of the most chaotic boards, with all the gambling related events it has. I personally hate it because of how little control you have on it, but hey, it seems to have made a special place in many people's hearts. So perhaps it could be a decent medium difficulty board, and the more frantic atmosphere would be a nice contrast to the previous more relaxing ones. Sure, on one hand, the fact that it's so heavily gambling themed might disqualify it from returning, as it's a bit of a touchy subject. After all, we never got Mario Party 3 on Virtual Console, and that had even less gambling elements. But maybe they're past that, seeing as we did get it for Switch Online now, so I wouldn't mark this one out. Next, for the 4th map, I decided to settle for Castaway Bay from Mario Party 6. Again, a controversial but still generally iconic board. It's basically Mario's Rainbow Castle from Mario Party 1, but a bit more dynamic in its layout and happening events. And since we also just had that board for Jamboree, this would be a kind of nice follow-up, and perhaps a small breather after the casino we just had. I also have no doubt they'd keep the day-night cycle to this board, seeing as they were able to keep it for Horrorland and Superstars as well, so yeah. For the penultimate board, let's go for Koopa's Tycoon Town. Okay, does this really require an explanation? And lastly, for the final and unlockable board, how about Bowser's Enchanted Inferno for Mario Party 7? Obviously, we need a big bad Bowser board to cap off the game selection. Sure, we didn't have it for Super or Superstars, which was dumb, but we did get one for Jamboree, so I think it's safe to say that ND Cube learned their lesson, hopefully. And between the Bowser boards we have available on our hands now, this is definitely the most interesting one design-wise. And while the gimmicks it has are harsh, they're not complete bullcrap. as the whole mechanic of sinking the island with the star every 5 turns does add a timing-based strategy, and I think it would make for a lot of funny games with family. But yeah, that's about it for the boards. This way, we get one from each game, and they'd also progress nicely from easy to hard, mostly. Now, let's head on over to the... characters! So this section is probably gonna be fairly short. If the next Mario Party game is another retro collection, then chances are that the playable character selection is probably gonna be downsized quite a bit. Super Mario Party and Jamboree both had up to 20 characters, but they were also brand new games, so it's understandable they wanted to make them look flashy. But for Superstars, yeah, we only got 10, and it was just the classic choices from the original trilogy, and also Birdo and Rosalina. But if the next game is gonna be more GameCube oriented, I also think the character selection will be more in line with those games, so slightly larger. I've decided to settle for 14 characters, and they are Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Rosalina, Wario, Waluigi, Yoshi, Birdo, Toad, Toadette, Boo, Donkey Kong, and Dry Bones. What's that, you say? Donkey Kong can't be playable because he already has a role on Castaway Bay? Well, no problem. Just give his role to a Yellow Toad instead. He sucks, but hey, that's his purpose. But yeah, this way though, we'd basically have every important character from the GameCube era, and also Rosalina, who by all means is pretty much a staple character now. I'd love to have even more characters like Hammer Bro, Pauline, and Diddy Kong, and even Blooper too, but we all know ND Cube. If everybody is in, how are they gonna improve the roster for the next game? At least that would explain why Jamboree has so many misses. And no, Koopa Kid is not coming. He's dead, buried, and was always uninspired anyways. Now that we have this though, let's get on to the final section of the video. The minigames. And also everything else. So, when it comes to the minigames, I think it's a fair bet that it will probably be around 100 minigames again. Maybe a bit more to hamper on the fact that it's bigger than Superstars, but overall, I think that game definitely found a balance for this. So I'm gonna settle for 100 this time as well. However, it's gonna be much more skewed towards the GameCube and Wii games, seeing as the N64 has already had its time to shine. And while I don't have time to elaborate on all of my choices, obviously, these are the ones that I've personally handpicked. So 57 free-for-all games, 14 1v3s and 2v2s, 7 duels, 6 extras, and 3 Bowser games. And of these, there's also 10 corner minigames and 9 optional motion minigames. This way, we'd get a decent chunk of variety between all minigame types. And sure, maybe I overstated the dual minigame count, seeing as both Superstars and Jamboree only had 5 for some reason, but seeing as the later Mario parties were a bit more duel heavy, I think if we could get at least a few more. And you may have also noticed that I gave a boss battle to each board, and that's because I believe ND Cube is gonna take a step further with those minigames. It was already super cool to see them return for Jamboree, and while they were sadly pretty undercooked as they only appeared for the story mode and sometimes for battle games, maybe they could be given a bigger role next time. Like, what if they occurred as the final minigame each match? That would certainly leave a strong final impression. For what it's worth, I definitely think that what we saw in Jamboree was mostly just a testing ground to see what people's reception would be to them. And now that we've had that, they'll probably feel more confident to include them to a greater extent here, and not just in a story mode. And that's about it for this prediction video. I'd love to go in depth about more things such as items, side modes, and a bunch of other things, but beyond that, it becomes much harder to make an accurate guess on anything. It's already kind of hard to talk about the game we don't know anything about, and the aspects I did go through are just the ones where we can most accurately make guesses. And even then, there's no definitive proof at all what the next Mario Party will be. This was just a fun little speculation video, if the next game will be like Superstars. Maybe if we're lucky though, Mario Party Superstars Legacy will end up becoming a reality on October 21st, 2027. Yeah, that's what I'm calling it. Take all of this with a huge grain of salt though. This is the most wobbly prediction video I've ever made. I hope you all enjoyed it though nevertheless. But what are your predictions for the next Mario Party game? Do you agree with me or not? Let me know down below what ideas you all have for it. And in the meantime, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel as I talk about everything Mario related. Follow me on Discord, Twitter, and Patreon, and I'll see you all soon. Until next time.